Okay, right off the bat, hopefully everyone can already see this, but the title is hyperbolic and somewhat sarcastic. Gamergate is not a cultural monolith. It never has been, it never will be, and yet somehow, every couple of years, actually every year, almost like clockwork, the topic is dragged back into the spotlight for ridiculous, nonsensical reasons, so here we are. This is the pattern. 5, 6, 7, even 8 years after Gamergate officially occurred, 2014 being the initial year it began, something will happen. It might be a tragedy, a political controversy, or anything really, but something will happen that triggers a particular demographic, and suddenly we're talking about Gamergate again. Here's an example. The day after the January 6th Capitol riot, on January 7th to be exact, we see this article get published in Vox. What we still haven't learned from Gamergate. Quote, in the wake of the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th by Trump supporters, bystanders on social media had plenty to say about the root causes and contributing factors that may have led to this flashpoint. Among these was Gamergate, the year-long harassment campaign from 2014 to 2015 that eventually became subsumed into the greater rise of the alt-right movement online. End quote. Okay, Gamergate is responsible for the Capitol riot. Got it. But what's next? Well, you might be surprised to know that Gamergate is also responsible for not one, but numerous mass tragedies. Not really, but people love to say it is. In 2019, a tragic event occurred in El Paso, Texas, a mass shooting to be exact. In the wake of this tragedy, Republicans tried to blame video games, a holistically debunked and erroneous narrative, while specific media outlets decided to blame Gamergate. Here's an article from Slate. The real connection between video games and mass shootings. It's Gamergate. Right. Okay. So Gamergate is the cause of the January 6th Capitol riot. Gamergate is the cause of a bunch, all mass shootings, but what else? According to a larger than you might expect number of public figures, including politicians in the United States, gaming and Gamergate are tied to Russia. Russian agents are a factor as Gamergate signals the demise of our democracy. And if you want to go even further, just sprinting headlong away from reality right now, Gamergate has been accused as the culprit behind retail financial market manipulation. It definitely wasn't the fact that GameStop was the most shorted stock in Wall Street history with impossible underlying values and a significant short squeeze upside. No, it wasn't that. It was the Gamergate nihilists who just wanted to ruin everything. According to Ryan Broderick, ex-writer for BuzzFeed, and who the hell cares what he does now, quote, our Wall Street Bets users noticed that Citron was shorting GameStop and, because they're all radicalized post-Gamergate nihilists, decided to bet against Citron mainly out of spite. Not because of an underlying financial play, no, that couldn't be it. But also because the subreddit has been longing GameStop forever. The subreddit's users have basically figured out how to work together as a community to rearrange the raw source code of capitalism into a shitty video game. The result is a cascade of speculation bubbles on random nonsense. End quote. That's just fantastic. The point is, Gamergate is blamed 6, 7, even 8 years later for a non-stop deluge of ridiculous occurrences, and today is no different. Let's take a moment here and understand what Gamergate actually was. In 2014, video game enthusiasts became aware of a genuine conflict of interest. If you want to be as reductive as possible here, and there's much more to it, it's actually incredibly complex, but if you want to be reductive, a game developer named Zoe Quinn had received favorable coverage from a journalist, Nathan Grayson, without disclosure, and that was seen as an industry failure. Ethics in journalism became the tagline for the movement, and that is effectively what kicked off a culture war between two groups. On one side, initially at least, was a group of people demanding higher standards from gaming journalism, and on the other was a group of journalists, go figure, and high-profile game development figures who began to claim that they were being harassed. The truth of the matter, as always, lands somewhere in the middle, because out of that group, the ones demanding higher ethical standards, came a series of trolls who absolutely did go too far. However, for those interested, the FBI did investigate the issue, and as per their public disclosure, 172 pages of their investigation that has been somewhat redacted, the entire thing was a great big nothing. Except, for those that felt victimized, it wasn't nothing. In fact, it was the antithesis of nothing, because it would rapidly morph into the catch-all boogeyman for nearly every bad thing that they have ever encountered. Gamergate succeeded in very little, actually, but one of the things it did accomplish was propelling its supposed victims to an international spotlight, with more opportunities, business opportunities, than they ever could have had previously. Two of the central figures at the time, Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn, were speaking at the United Nations about this shit, and the reality of the situation is that Gamergate did not suppress any voices, it amplified them. So why am I talking about all this? Simply put, it's time for round 679 of Everything is Gamergate because we have a double feature, and the cultural monolith of Gamergate is once again under scrutiny and in the public eye. Meet Caroline. Caroline is a PhD behavioral scientist, I believe it is, and prior journalist with nearly 500,000 social media followers. In the wake of yet another mass tragedy in the United States, Caroline decided to voice her concern. Quote, I feel like calling Gamergate Gamergate relegates it to the domain of gaming, when really it was the kickoff of basically all the awful things in media, social media, culture, tech, and business that are still going on today. The thread goes on to draw direct correlations between Gamergate and Elon Musk's recent sexual misconduct accusations. It draws a connection between Gamergate and the Heard Johnny Depp trial, because public opinion has largely soured against Amber Heard after the trial was publicly aired. Further down, it's all about free speech and medical freedom, like literally medical freedom, being weaponized because the people doing it were taught how to do so by Gamergate. And the list goes on. She unironically blames literally everything that is wrong with our modern society on Gamergate. How about this one? Kathy Griffin, over 2 million social media followers, and notoriously mired in controversy after holding a replica of Donald Trump's head as if she had chopped it off. Like, it was a pretty graphic image. Straight up tried to blame Gamergate for this. Quote, hey, techie smarty pants followers of mine, do you think what happened with my Trump photo scandal being such an international overblown outrage could have been because of this Gamergate thing I'm just learning about? End quote. Yeah, no, it's not because he's wildly popular with tens of millions of people in this country alone. It's because of Gamergate. Wow, yeah, you nailed it. Logical conclusion on that one, Kathy. When it comes to the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, Vox had this to say, quote, why the Depp-Heard trial is so much worse than you realize. Amber Heard is just the first target of a new extremist playbook. And further down the page, quote, the Depp-Heard trial has refined the Gamergate playbook in a way that will haunt us for years to come. It's already been 8 fucking years, but cool, more years to come, got it. It has proven to extremists that if you rally around the right beloved public figure or institution, blanket them in a protective sphere of outrage and misinformation and weaponized fandom culture, already so prone to ideological radicalization and irrational groupthink, you can successfully push whatever media narrative you want into the mainstream, end quote. In a discussion between Atlantic's Caitlin Tiffany and Derek Thompson, just to give more examples of how widespread this narrative has become, all right? I know it's getting repetitive, but this is the last one, mainly. Tiffany said, quote, yeah, Gamergate's, I don't know, arguably the most important cultural historical event of my life. It started actually when I was in my first year as a journalist at a tech website, so I was very intimately acquainted with Gamergate. But basically, Gamergate was this elaborate, I guess you could say, system or network of harassment campaigns that started in the video game sphere and was directed at women in that industry, and then just radiated outward to be this just massive outpouring of misogyny and reactionary politics on the internet, end quote. Now, here's the thing. The cultural juggernaut of Gamergate isn't just responsible for literally everything bad that has ever happened to anyone ever. It is also directly correlated, supposedly, to the alt-right. Now, yes, the term alt-right is so massively polluted with online drivel these days and twisted beyond recognition, it basically doesn't even mean anything anymore. It just means I don't like you, so you're alt-right. But by media definitions, apparently I myself am a part of this. In 2019, a journalist writing for CNET named Ian Schur, under false pretenses I might add, tricked me into doing an interview and then published a hit piece against many gaming creators as he ignored the actual subject matter of what I said because he didn't like our content. He thought we were too angry. He directly targeted advertisers as well. He spent months doing this, attempting to harm our livelihoods, and tried to brand us as prejudiced with his language. But something a lot of people don't know is that he also published a companion piece. This companion piece was just an index of definitions that he made up himself for certain terms, including one in particular, SJW, which is tied directly into the section he wrote about me. This definition, the way he writes it, is a term that gained popularity during Gamergate, you guessed it. And thus, if you logically connect the dots here, even I am a proponent of the monolithic oppression of Gamergate in 2019 when he wrote this, because I posted a video about social justice narrative politics ruining specific video games. Every year, it seems, the cycle repeats itself. Gamers are evil, gamers are mean, Gamergate is destroying society, blah, blah, blah. But this time, it's coming back with a vengeance. Ellie Mistal, justice correspondent for The Nation on Twitter, has an entire thread about how gaming communities are just safe harbors for horrible mass murdering criminals and racists. The claim is that this type of person finds community here, and the blanket assertion is that video games are some kind of fertile ground where criminals are developing their mind for nefarious and prejudice-oriented actions. It's insane. It's unhinged. Headlines are, once again, appearing across the internet about how video game communities driven by the Gamergate playbook, they love to say that, are a home for radicalization and prejudice, and this is being fed by the desire to weaponize a recent tragedy, which was streamed directly to Twitch, and use anything possible as a cudgel against a group of people that has grown to nearly half, literally, gamers are nearly half the global population. I have my reservations about how you go about categorizing mobile games in all this, to be fair, but gamers as a blanket term now account for over 3 billion people. And yet, like clockwork, every time something happens that a particular group disagrees with or doesn't like, be it the public animosity for Amber Heard because a group of screeching social media users are unwilling to accept the fact that maybe people hate her because of the evidence they have seen, and she might actually be guilty, or the storming of the US Capitol, mass tragedies, Russian influence in our politics, stock market volatility, personal scandals for world billionaires, anything. When something happens that this particular group just disagrees with, it was Gamergate. Bottom line, Gamergate has become a cultural monolith, and it's a meme, honestly, it is, to try and suggest that some of these things are in any way correlated. It's used by a specific group of people to explain practically everything they do not like, which in my opinion feeds an immeasurable amount of power into a simple 2014 scandal that is long over. It's died, it's done. Everything that angers this group of people is caused by Gamergate. And if everything is Gamergate, and has been since 2014, then Gamergate is an inevitable, all-powerful social construct that will now, apparently, according to them, govern our lives in perpetuity. Hopefully everyone can see just how unhinged this narrative has become. Anyway, that's it. Gamergate is a long-dead controversy in which a few video game grifters advance their careers by leaps and bounds off the back of self-professed victimhood. Good for them, honestly, well done. That takes talent or dedication or whatever you want to call it, but 8 years later, when it comes to the world's richest man having a sexual misconduct scandal, or the most publicized trial in recent memory involving one of the most beloved and also one of the most hated celebrities on Earth, it was not and is not being caused by Gamergate. Get the fuck over it. If you want to support the channel, there are links down below. I'll keep the outro short this time. There's plenty of them. Check them out. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.